The judge's voice echoed through the federal courtroom like a death sentence. Miss Thornwood, you are charged with insider trading, securities fraud, and embezzlement totaling $47 million. How do you plead? Mia Thornwood stood alone at the defendant's table. Her hands were ice cold. Her throat felt like sandpaper. She wore a gray blazer borrowed from a coworker because she couldn't afford dry cleaning for her own clothes. 23 years old, and she was about to lose everything she never had. Not guilty, Your Honor. A ripple of laughter came from the gallery. Mia didn't need to turn around to know who was laughing. Victoria Ashworth, her stepmother, sat in the front row wearing a pearl necklace that cost more than Mia's entire apartment. Victoria's lips curved into a smile that looked like a knife. The prosecutor, a tall man named Richard Hayes, adjusted his silk tie. Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. Miss Thornwood had access to classified merger documents at Ashworth Capital. She used that access to execute trades worth $47 million through offshore accounts registered in her name. Mia's public defender, a nervous man named Mr. Patterson, shuffled his papers. He hadn't looked her in the eye once since the trial began. He was going through the motions. Everyone in this room had already decided she was guilty. The prosecution requests that bail be denied, Hayes continued. Miss Thornwood has no family, no assets, and represents a significant flight risk. No family. The words hit Mia like a punch to the stomach. Her father, William Ashworth, had died 2 years ago in a boating accident. At least that's what the official report said. William had taken her in when she was 5 years old after her mother disappeared. He had raised her, loved her, made her believe she belonged somewhere. But William had never officially adopted her. He always said he would get around to it. Now he was dead, and his widow Victoria controlled everything. Victoria had made Mia's life a living hell. First came the demotion at Ashworth Capital from junior analyst to male clerk. Then came the eviction from the family estate. Now came this trial, this elaborate trap designed to destroy her completely. Your Honor, Mr. Patterson said weakly, my client maintains her innocence. She has no knowledge of these offshore accounts. That's what they all say, Victoria whispered loudly enough for the press to hear. Several reporters snickered. Judge Morrison, a heavy-set man with deep lines carved into his face, peered down at Mia over his reading glasses. Miss Thornwood, these are serious charges. The evidence presented by the prosecution is substantial. Do you have anyone who can vouch for your character? Anyone at all? Mia turned around slowly. She looked at the crowded gallery, reporters with hungry eyes. Victoria's friends from the country club, former co-workers who wouldn't meet her gaze. She saw no one who cared whether she lived or died. No, Your Honor. Her voice cracked on the last word. There's no one. Victoria let out a dramatic sigh. Such a shame. I tried so hard to help that girl. The judge raised his gavel. In that case, given the severity of the charges and the defendant's lack of community ties, I have no choice but to. The courtroom doors exploded open. Not figuratively. The heavy oak doors literally flew open with such force that they slammed against the walls. Every head in the room whipped around. The bailiff reached for his weapon. Reporters scrambled for their cameras. A woman walked in. She was in her late 50s but moved like someone half her age. She wore a burgundy power suit that screamed money, the quiet kind of money that doesn't need to advertise. Her silver hair was pulled back in an elegant chignon. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with the rhythm of a metronome, each step deliberate, each step commanding. Behind her marched 6 lawyers in identical black suits. They moved in perfect formation, carrying briefcases that probably cost more than cars. Order, Judge Morrison banged his gavel. This is a closed session. Who are you and what is the meaning of this intrusion? The woman stopped at the railing directly behind Mia. For a moment, she simply looked at the back of Mia's head. Something flickered in her steel-gray eyes. recognition, pain, love. Forgive the interruption, Your Honor. The woman's voice was smooth as aged whiskey and twice as potent. But I believe the court asked if anyone could vouch for Miss Thornwood. I can. Victoria shot to her feet. This is ridiculous. Who is this woman? Security. The woman finally looked at Victoria. Just looked. It wasn't a glare or a sneer. It was the look a lion gives to a gazelle that has wandered too close. Victoria sat back down as if her legs had given out. My name, the woman announced, turning back to the judge, is Eleanor Blackwood. The courtroom went silent, not quiet, silent, as if all the oxygen had been sucked from the room. Mia had never heard that name before, but everyone else clearly had. The judge's face went pale. The prosecutor dropped his pen. Even the court stenographer stopped typing. Eleanor Blackwood, Judge Morrison repeated slowly. The Eleanor Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Industries. The same. Blackwood Industries. Even Mia knew that name. It was a global conglomerate that made Ashworth Capital look like a lemonade stand. Shipping, manufacturing, technology, real estate. The Blackwood empire touched every corner of the world economy. Mrs. Blackwood, the judge said carefully, with all due respect, what possible connection could you have to this case? Eleanor Blackwood placed her hand on Mia's shoulder. The touch was gentle, warm, and it made Mia's breath catch in her throat. This young woman is not a thief, Eleanor said. She is not a criminal. She is my granddaughter. The courtroom erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed like lightning. Victoria screamed something incoherent. The judge pounded his gavel so hard it sounded like gunfire. Mia couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Granddaughter, that was impossible. Her mother had died when she was 4. She had no other family. William had told her that 1,000 times. Order, order in the court. Judge Morrison finally managed to regain control. He mopped sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Mrs. Blackwood, that is an extraordinary claim. Do you have any evidence to support it? One of Eleanor's lawyers stepped forward. He placed a thick folder on the judge's bench. DNA test results processed by 3 independent laboratories, Your Honor. Birth certificates from Geneva. A sealed affidavit from the late William Ashworth confirming the arrangement. And financial records showing a blind trust established in Miss Thornwood's name in 2001, currently valued at $800 million. Mia heard the number, but it didn't register. $800 million. It was meaningless. Numbers on a page. Furthermore, the lawyer continued, these documents show that the offshore accounts used in the alleged fraud were created just 6 weeks ago. Miss Thornwood could not have created them because she doesn't have the security clearance. But Victoria Ashworth does. Victoria's face turned the color of chalk. That's a lie. This is a setup. William never mentioned any of this. William kept my secret for 23 years, Eleanor said quietly. He was the only person I trusted to protect my granddaughter. He died because of that trust. The judge was flipping through the documents, his eyes growing wider with each page. Mrs. Blackwood, these papers suggest that Miss Thornwood is the sole heir to, my God. To everything, Eleanor confirmed. My entire estate, every company, every asset. Mia is my only living relative. My daughter Catherine was her mother. Mia finally found her voice. It came out as a whisper. My mother, you knew my mother. Eleanor turned to face her properly for the first time. Up close, Mia could see the resemblance. The same cheekbones, the same curve of the jaw, the same steel in the eyes. Catherine was my daughter, Eleanor said, her voice thick with emotion she was fighting to control. She died protecting you, Mia, and I have spent every day since then trying to make sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain. This is insane, Victoria shrieked. She was on her feet again, pointing a shaking finger at Eleanor. William never said anything about this. The estate belongs to me. I am his widow. You are a gold digger who married a dying man, Eleanor said coldly. William was my employee. He ran Ashworth Capital as a front for my operations in North America. The company, the estate, the investments, all of it belongs to Blackwood Industries. You never owned anything, Victoria. You were just living in my house. The prosecutor, Richard Hayes, was frantically conferring with his team. He stepped forward, sweat beading on his forehead. Your Honor, the prosecution requests a recess to verify these documents. I have a better idea, Eleanor's lead lawyer said. Check the IP addresses on the offshore accounts. You'll find they trace back to a computer in Victoria Ashworth's private office. You'll also find wire transfers to a shell company owned by her brother. Mrs. Ashworth didn't just frame Mia. She embezzled from her own husband's company to fund her gambling addiction. Victoria's face went from white to gray. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. That's not. I didn't. You can't prove. We already have, Eleanor said. My security team has been investigating you for 6 months, Victoria. We have everything. The emails, the phone calls, the meetings with Richard Hayes to coordinate this prosecution. Hayes went pale. I was simply following the evidence. The evidence you manufactured, Eleanor's lawyer said. We have recordings, Mr. Hayes. Would you like us to play them for the court? Judge Morrison slammed his gavel down one final time. That's enough. Mrs. Ashworth, Mr. Hayes, you will both remain in this courtroom under bailiff supervision. I am dismissing all charges against Miss Thornwood pending a full investigation into prosecutorial misconduct and evidence tampering. He looked at Mia, his expression softening. Young lady, you are free to go, and I am very, very sorry. Mia felt her knees buckle. Eleanor caught her, holding her steady with surprising strength. Breathe, Eleanor murmured. I've got you now. No one will ever hurt you again. Victoria lunged toward them, her face twisted with rage. This isn't over. You can't just waltz in here and take everything. I earned that money. I put up with William for 3 years. I deserve. 2 federal marshals grabbed Victoria's arms. She screamed and thrashed, but they held her firm. Eleanor didn't even look at her. She was already guiding Mia toward the exit. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Outside, a convoy of black SUVs waited at the curb. A young man in a dark suit opened the back door of the lead vehicle. He had short brown hair, alert blue eyes, and moved with the coiled energy of someone trained for violence. His hands were scarred. His posture screamed military. Ma'am, he said to Eleanor, all clear. Eleanor helped Mia into the car and slid in beside her. The young man got into the front passenger seat. Within seconds, the convoy was moving. Mia stared out the tinted window at the courthouse, growing smaller in the distance. Victoria was being led out in handcuffs, cameras swarming around her like vultures. Richard Hayes was arguing with federal agents. I don't understand, Mia finally said. Her voice sounded strange in her own ears. Hollow, distant. None of this makes sense. Eleanor was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with 2 decades of pain. Your mother was everything to me, brilliant, fearless, kind. She was going to take over Blackwood Industries someday. Eleanor's hands clenched in her lap. But she fell in love with the wrong man. Who? Alexander Reyes. He was handsome, charming, and secretly working for a consortium called the Crimson Circle. They wanted control of my shipping routes. The fastest way to get that control was through my daughter. The SUV turned onto the highway, picking up speed. Outside the window, Manhattan's skyline glittered in the afternoon sun. Catherine discovered the truth too late. She was already pregnant with you. When she tried to leave Alexander, he threatened to kill you both. So I made a plan. I faked her death. I gave you to the only man I trusted, my head of security, William Ashworth. He raised you as his own while I led the Crimson Circle to believe the Blackwood bloodline had ended. Mia's head was spinning. So my whole life has been a lie. Your whole life has been a shield, Alina corrected. William loved you, Mia. That was real. Everything he did was to keep you safe. But 2 years ago, the Crimson Circle discovered the truth. They killed him for it. The boating accident. Wasn't an accident. Alina's voice turned to ice. Victoria was working for them. She married William to get close to you. When she couldn't find proof of your identity, she decided to destroy you instead. Frame you for fraud, send you to prison, make sure you could never claim your inheritance. The young man in the front seat spoke for the first time. Ma'am, we're being followed. Black sedan, 3 cars back. Alina didn't look concerned. How many? Just 1 vehicle, 4 occupants. They're testing our response time. Let them watch. She turned back to Mia. This is Marcus. He's your new head of security, former Army Special Forces. He's been protecting you from a distance for the past year. Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. His eyes met Mia's for a brief second. There was something warm in them beneath the professional exterior. Something that made Mia's heart skip unexpectedly. You've been watching me, Mia asked. Someone had to keep you alive, Marcus said simply. That apartment you lived in had 4 separate surveillance devices planted by Victoria's people. I removed 3 of them. Left one so they'd think you didn't know. You broke into my apartment. Technically, I picked the lock. Breaking implies damage. A hint of a smile played at the corner of his mouth. I also fixed your leaky faucet while I was there. You're welcome. Despite everything, Mia felt herself almost smile. That was you. I thought I was losing my mind. The convoy pulled into an underground garage beneath a gleaming tower on Park Avenue. Armed guards stood at every entrance. Security cameras covered every angle. Welcome home, Alina said. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of the building. Floor to ceiling, windows offered views of Central Park. The furniture was modern but warm. Orchids bloomed in strategic arrangements. It looked like a home, not a showroom. But Mia noticed the details Alina didn't mention. The reinforced doors, the panic room behind the bookshelf, the way Marcus's eyes swept every corner before allowing them to enter. You live like this? Mia asked, running her hand along the cool marble of the kitchen counter. I survive like this, Alina said. The Crimson Circle has tried to kill me 11 times over the past 20 years. They've killed 3 of my board members, 2 of my lawyers, and the woman I was going to marry. Every person I've ever loved has become a target. She walked to a bar cart and poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. She handed one to Mia. That's why I stayed away from you. As long as you were nobody, you were safe. But Victoria accelerated their timeline. If I hadn't intervened today, you would have been convicted by Monday and dead by Wednesday. Mia took a long drink. The whiskey burned her throat but steadied her nerves. So what happens now? Now we go to war. Alina's eyes hardened. In 3 weeks, there's a charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum. Every major player in finance and politics will be there, including the leaders of the Crimson Circle. You know who they are. I've always known. I just never had proof. Alina smiled, and it was terrifying. But they don't know I know. They think I'm a frightened old woman clinging to her empire. They're going to offer me a deal at the gala. Sell them controlling interest in Blackwood Industries, or they'll release evidence linking me to Catherine's murder. That's insane. You didn't murder anyone. They have fabricated documents, witness testimony from paid actors, a body they exhumed from a grave in Switzerland. Alina shook her head. 20 years of planning, 20 years of patience, all leading to that moment. What are you going to do? Alina finished her drink and set the glass down with a sharp click. I'm going to introduce them to my granddaughter. the real heir to the Blackwood fortune, the woman who will destroy everything they've built. Mia's stomach dropped. Me, I can't. I'm nobody. I was a mail clerk a week ago. You were a mail clerk because Victoria made sure you had no opportunities. Before that, you graduated top of your class at Columbia Business School. Before that, you interned at Goldman Sachs and had 3 job offers on Wall Street before Victoria blackballed you. Eleanor crossed to her and took her hands. You are brilliant, Mia. You are strong. You are a Blackwood. And in 3 weeks, you're going to walk into that gala and show them what that means. The next 3 weeks were the most intense of Mia's life. During the day, she learned the Blackwood empire, shipping roots and manufacturing plants, technology patents and real estate holdings, a web of companies spanning 40 countries and employing 200,000 people. Her inheritance wasn't just money. It was responsibility for human lives. In the evenings, Eleanor taught her the social battlefield, which senators could be trusted, which board members were secretly hostile, how to smile at someone while calculating their destruction. And through it all, there was Marcus. He was her shadow, her protector, her constant presence. He taught her self-defense in the penthouse gym. He drove her to meetings in armored vehicles. He stood guard outside her bedroom door every night. He also made her laugh. "You're holding the knife wrong," Marcus said one evening during their training session. He stepped behind her and adjusted her grip, his calloused hands warm against her skin. "Like this. The blade is an extension of your arm, not a separate weapon." Mia was suddenly very aware of his proximity, the scent of his aftershave, the strength in his arms. "You know," she said, trying to steady her voice, "most girls learn self-defense from YouTube tutorials, not former special forces operators. Most girls aren't worth $800 million to international criminals." Marcus stepped back, his expression professional again, but Mia caught the way his eyes lingered on her face. "Besides, YouTube can't teach you how to survive a real attack." "Have you survived many?" "Enough." He touched a scar on his forearm unconsciously. "Afghanistan, 3 tour, saw things that still wake me up at night." "Why did you leave?" "Got tired of fighting wars I didn't believe in." He met her eyes directly. "Your grandmother offered me something better, a chance to protect someone worth protecting." Mia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." Marcus handed her a water bottle. "I know you volunteered at a homeless shelter every Saturday for 2 years, even when Victoria cut off your trust fund. I know you gave your last $50 to a single mother on the subway because her kid needed medicine. I know you're terrified of this gala, but you're going anyway because people are depending on you. You've been watching me for a year. Of course you know those things." "Knowing isn't the same as caring." Marcus's voice dropped lower. "I started this job as an assignment, but somewhere along the way it became something else." The air between them crackled with tension. Mia opened her mouth to respond, but the elevator chimed. Eleanor entered, looking grim. They moved up the timeline. The gala is tomorrow night. The Metropolitan Museum of Art blazed with light. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbows across the marble floors. A string quartet played Vivaldi beneath ancient Egyptian artifacts. New York's elite mingled and preened, their combined net worth exceeding the GDP of most nations. Mia stood at the entrance wearing a sapphire gown that matched her eyes. Eleanor's stylist had transformed her from a frightened male clerk into a goddess. Her hair fell in waves over bare shoulders. Diamond earrings caught the light with every turn of her head. The silver locket around her neck, the only thing she had from her mother, completed the look. "Breathe," Marcus murmured in her ear. He stood beside her in a tailored tuxedo, looking like a movie star who happened to know 50 ways to kill someone. "You've got this." "I'm terrified." "Good, terror keeps you sharp." He offered his arm. "Shall we?" They descended the grand staircase together. Heads turned. Whispers spread like wildfire. Billionaire had orchestrated the reveal perfectly. Press releases had gone out that afternoon announcing Mia as the long-lost heir to the Blackwood fortune. Social media was already exploding. Every person in this room had read the story. Mia Blackwood, a smooth voice cut through the noise. A man approached them. He was in his 60s, silver-haired and distinguished, with the predatory smile of a shark in a business suit. Mia recognized him from Billionaire's briefings. Victor Reyes, the head of the Crimson Circle, and according to Billionaire, the man who had ordered her mother's death. Her father's brother. I must say, Victor continued, you're the spitting image of Catherine. She was beautiful too, right up until the end. Mia felt Marcus tense beside her. His hand moved toward his concealed weapon. Mr. Reyes. Mia kept her voice steady despite the rage boiling in her blood. My grandmother has told me so much about you. Has she? Victor's eyes gleamed with malice. I'm sure she has. Billionaire and I go way back. We've been dancing around each other for decades. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. But the dance is over, little girl. You can't save her, and you certainly can't save yourself. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Victor straightened his tie. Enjoy the party while you can. By midnight, everything will change. He walked away, disappearing into the crowd. That was him, Mia breathed. The man who killed my mother. I know. Marcus's jaw was tight. Say the word and I'll end him tonight. No. Mia placed her hand on his arm. We do this Billionaire's way. We destroy them legally, publicly, and completely. The next 2 hours were a blur of handshakes, champagne, and forced smiles. Mia played her part perfectly. The sweet, naive granddaughter, the innocent heiress, no threat at all. At 11:45, Billionaire took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced, her voice carrying across the great hall, thank you for joining us tonight. As you know, the Blackwood Foundation supports education, healthcare, and economic development around the world. Tonight, I'm proud to announce our largest initiative yet. A massive screen descended behind her. Images began to play, documents, wire transfers, recorded phone calls. For 20 years, Billionaire continued, a criminal organization called the Crimson Circle has infiltrated the highest levels of global finance. They have manipulated markets. They have destroyed companies. They have murdered anyone who stood in their way. Victor Reyes went pale. He began pushing through the crowd toward the exit. Tonight, I am releasing all evidence of their crimes to the Department of Justice, the SEC, and every major news organization in the world. Billionaire smiled. I hope you all brought your lawyers. The room erupted into chaos. Victor never made it to the door. FBI agents swarmed the museum, badges flashing. Half the guests were placed in handcuffs. The rest scrambled for their phones. But Victor wasn't going quietly. You think you've won? He screamed, struggling against the agents restraining him. His eyes locked onto Mia across the room. You'll never be safe. There are others. They'll come for you. They'll finish what I started. He broke free for just a second. His hand went to his pocket. Metal flashed. Marcus moved faster than thought. He threw himself in front of Mia just as the shot rang out. No, Mia screamed. Marcus crumpled to the floor. Blood bloomed across his white shirt. FBI agents tackled Victor, but Mia didn't see it. She was on her knees beside Marcus, pressing her hands against his chest, watching his life pour through her fingers. Stay with me, she begged. Please, Marcus, stay with me. His eyes were dimming. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth, but he reached up with shaking fingers and touched her face. Worth it, he whispered. You're worth it. Then his eyes closed. The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and despair. Mia sat in a plastic chair, still wearing her blood-stained gown. Billionaire sat beside her, holding her hand. They had been there for 6 hours. The surgeon finally emerged. She was exhausted but smiling. The bullet missed his heart by 2 centimeters. It punctured his lung, but we were able to repair the damage. He's going to make it. Mia sobbed with relief. Elena held her as she cried. 3 days later, she walked into Marcus's hospital room. He was awake, propped up by pillows, looking pale but alive. When he saw her, his whole face changed. "You look terrible," he rasped. Mia laughed through her tears. "You almost died, and that's what you say to me." "I've had better pick-up lines." He winced as he tried to sit up straighter. "How's your grandmother?" "Busy. Victor Reyes and 47 of his associates have been arrested. The Crimson Circle is finished." Mia sat on the edge of his bed. "You saved my life." "It's my job." "About that," Mia took a deep breath. "You're fired." Marcus blinked. "What?" "I can't date my employees. It's a conflict of interest." She leaned down and kissed him softly. "So you're fired, effective immediately." Marcus smiled against her lips. "Best termination I've ever had." 6 months later, Mia stood at the head of a boardroom table in the Blackwood Industries headquarters. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. "The acquisition of Ray's Holdings is complete," her CFO announced. "We've absorbed their shipping routes, liquidated their illegal assets, and donated the proceeds to victims' compensation funds." Mia nodded. "What about the scholarship program?" "Fully funded. The first class of Catherine Blackwood scholars starts at Columbia next fall." Mia looked around the table. 6 months ago, she had been a male clerk facing 40 years in prison. Now she controlled one of the largest conglomerates in the world. But she hadn't forgotten where she came from. "My mother gave her life to protect me," Mia said. "My father figure raised me in secret to keep me safe, and my grandmother spent 20 years building the evidence to destroy the people who hurt our family." She stood up, her voice ringing with conviction. "We honor their sacrifices by building something better, not just a company, a legacy, one that protects people instead of exploiting them." The board members nodded. Some looked skeptical, others looked inspired. All of them looked at her differently now. After the meeting, Marcus was waiting by the elevator. He walked with a slight limp now, but refused to use a cane. Pride, he called it. Stupidity, she called it. "How did it go?" he asked. "They're starting to believe in me." "I've always believed in you." Mia took his hand. "I know, that's why I love you." Marcus pulled her close. "Ready to go home." Home, 6 months ago, that word meant nothing to her. Now it meant everything. The penthouse with Elena, the Sunday dinners, the family she never knew she had. "Yeah," Mia said, squeezing his hand. "Let's go home." As the elevator descended, she looked at her reflection in the polished metal doors. The scared girl from the courtroom was gone. In her place stood a woman who had faced the worst the world could throw at her and survived. Victoria Ashworth had tried to destroy her. Victor Reyes had tried to kill her. The world had told her she was nobody. But she was Mia Blackwood, granddaughter of Elena, daughter of Catherine, heir to an empire. And she was just getting started. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Security guards nodded respectfully as Mia and Marcus walked toward the waiting car. Outside, Manhattan hummed with its eternal energy. Taxis honked. Pedestrians rushed past with coffee cups and briefcases. Life went on, oblivious to the fact that a small male clerk had just brought down one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the Western Hemisphere. Marcus opened the car door for her. "Your grandmother called. She wants us at the penthouse by 7. Something about a celebration." "She's been planning something all week," Mia said, sliding into the back seat. "I think she invited the whole board." "Should I be worried?" "You should be terrified," Mia grinned. She's been asking me about wedding dates. Marcus nearly choked. We've been dating for 4 months. Eleanor doesn't believe in wasting time. Her exact words were, I didn't survive 11 assassination attempts to watch my granddaughter play hard to get. The car pulled into traffic. Mia watched the city scroll past her window. She thought about the girl she had been a year ago. Alone, afraid, convinced she was worthless. Victoria had done her best to break that girl, to crush her spirit until there was nothing left. But Victoria had made one critical mistake. She had underestimated what a Blackwood could endure. Mia's phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. The judge just signed off on Victoria's sentence. 25 years, no parole. She'll die in prison. Mia read the message twice. She expected to feel satisfaction, triumph. Instead, she felt empty. Victoria had taken everything from her. Her home, her career, her sense of self. She had tried to send Mia to prison for crimes she didn't commit. She had been willing to watch her die. And now Victoria would spend the rest of her life in a cell, alone and forgotten, while Mia built something beautiful. That was justice, real justice, not revenge. Everything okay? Marcus asked, noticing her expression. Mia put her phone away. Better than okay, it's finally over. But even as she said it, she knew that wasn't entirely true. The crimson circle was destroyed, but Victor Reyes's last words echoed in her mind. There are others. They'll come for you. She looked at Marcus, at the scar on his chest where the bullet had entered, at the strength in his hands and the loyalty in his eyes. They'll try again, won't they? She asked quietly. Someone else will come after us. Marcus took her hand. His grip was warm and steady, an anchor in the storm. Probably, he admitted. Money makes enemies, power makes more, but here's the thing, Mia. He turned to face her, his blue eyes blazing with conviction. They can send an army. They can plan for years. They can throw everything they have at us, and it won't matter. Why? Because you're not alone anymore. Marcus brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. You have Eleanor, you have the board, you have resources they can only dream about. He smiled. And you have me, for as long as you want me. Mia leaned her head against his shoulder. The fear didn't vanish, but it shrank to something manageable, something she could carry. Forever, she whispered. I want you forever. The car arrived at the penthouse as the sun began to set over Central Park. Golden light painted the trees in shades of amber and rose. The city sprawled beneath them, teeming with 8 million stories. But tonight, only one story mattered. A girl who had nothing became a woman who had everything. Not because of money or power or a name on a building, but because she refused to let the world define her worth. Victoria Ashworth had called her nobody. Victor Reyes had called her a target. The world had called her worthless. But Mia Blackwood knew the truth now. She had always been enough. She had always been worthy. She had always been strong. She just needed the right people to help her see it. The elevator doors opened to the penthouse. Eleanor stood waiting, dressed in an elegant silver gown, a champagne flute in her hand. Behind her, the board members and executives mingled, their laughter filling the space. There she is, Eleanor announced, her voice ringing with pride. The woman who brought down an empire and built a better one in its place. My granddaughter, my heir, Mia Blackwood. The room burst into applause. Mia felt tears prick her eyes. A year ago, she had stood alone in a courtroom with no one to vouch for her. Now she stood in a room full of people who believed in her, who trusted her, who would fight beside her. Family, she realized. This was what family felt like. She took Marcus's arm and walked into the light. And somewhere out there, in a place beyond pain and time, Catherine Blackwood smiled. Her daughter was finally home.